Now, what is one thing you notice about the background behind me? Well, it might be obvious that my computer's not on, and for this entire week, my computer hasn't been on. This entire video was filmed, edited, posted, the thumbnail was made, everything was done on my iPhone SE 2. Now, why did I do that? To prove that smartphones can do it. And not to mention, this was edited using free software. So let's talk about it. First things first, the inspiration was my buddy Lewis was asking me about mobile video editing, specifically audio, and that kind of sparked my thinking about this video and how I can do this entire video on my iPhone, because I've been planning on doing one for a while. I don't know, the software just hasn't seemed right. So let's talk about the camera. Now, first things first, this is the iPhone SE 2. It's a newer iPhone, and the camera on it is surprisingly fantastic, especially for being Apple's cheapest phone. Now, first I want to talk about the sharpness, because this is a big thing that I used to complain about with phones, that they always look a little too digital. And this camera, it does have genuinely good detail. Now, there's a difference between detail and sharpness. Detail is actually being captured. It's not digital, while sharpness is usually digital. I mean, there's still a lot of digital sharpening to this camera, a little too much for my personal liking, but it's definitely better than past phones, and it still looks very, very good. And there's good detail in all the different frame rates. 1080p, 120 frames a second looks very, very good. 4K 30 looks really good, and the 4K 60 also looks very good. Next up, I want to talk about the colors coming out of this phone. With such a tiny sensor, the photo sites are actually very, very small as well, which are the parts that actually absorb the light. And surprisingly, the colors coming out of this are very, very good. I was driving home from drifting the Ranger, and I saw the sunset, so I wanted to stop and get it. And these shots look very, very well, very minimal light, but lots of color in the sky, and still turned out very, very good. And even while filming outside, it's wintertime, so there's a lot of grays and browns. Even those still look pretty decent. I noticed a lot in my older phone, they get a very heavy blue or purple tint. I mean, this one, there still is a slight tint, but it definitely looks better. Next up, I want to talk about dynamic range. Phones these days, in general, have good right out of camera dynamic range. But one thing that they're really excelling in is using the software, for example, using HDR. And at first, you could kind of tell when it was using HDR, the things would kind of shift unnaturally and would just look really weird. But I can't tell if this phone is using it or not. It has extremely good dynamic range, making me think it has HDR, but you don't see any of the weird shifts or artifacts or things like that. And I didn't really notice that on this shot. I'm looking at a dark steering wheel, but you can see everything in the background. The snow, that's very, very white, is very detailed. The sky is very detailed. Overall, the shot just looks very even, leading me to believe that it has very good dynamic range. Now I want to talk about frame rates. Basically, for this video, I tested 1080p 120, 4K 60, 4K 30, and 4K 24. Because 4K 24, 4K 60, and 1080 120 are the most common frame rates. The only reason I actually use 4K 30 is because this editing program doesn't have a 24 frames a second option. But the 1080p 120, it used to look very soft on my iPhone 7, and I would also have a lot of autofocus problems. But believe it or not, that phone's almost 4 years old. In 2021, it'll be 4 years, which is crazy to think about. This phone in particular, the 1080p 120 looks very, very good. It's very sharp, very detailed, and it doesn't drift in and out of focus. It has very good autofocus now, and overall it just looks very, very good. The dynamic range is good, and I'm very happy with the image. I'll definitely be using 1080p 120 a lot. Now, all the 4K frame rates look very, very similar. There's not one that looks better than the other. They all look very good. They're all very detailed and sharp, and it's just a really good quality coming out of it. So in general, the camera itself isn't really the limitation anymore. You can get very, very good video out of this phone. I didn't really test much photography, but the few pictures I've taken look absolutely spectacular. So the cameras look extremely good these days. There's a lot of software processing going on to help them look very good. But let's talk about the editing side. I've always found that this is the weakness of phones, but that's getting better each day. For example, Adobe just released their Adobe Premiere Rush program, which if you have the full creative suite, you get a few more premium features. You can sync it up with Premiere Pro on your desktop, but you can use it with a basic subscription. For example, I'm using the free version. Now, you don't get all the professional features, but it's still amazing. This entire video's been edited on it. I can do speed ramps, I can detach audio, so that way at a slow-mo clip, I can have the audio playing back at normal speed. I can have multiple layers of video, video, which is a very, very big deal. There's not many settings in general, but I can still color grade, which I was very surprised about. In a lot of mobile editing apps, the only color grading you can do is adding a filter. But with this, you can actually go in there and adjust the sliders, which I'm very, very happy with. And I could definitely see if you're doing mobile editing, you'd want to have a bigger phone or even an iPad-sized device, just because this specific phone is a very tiny screen. And I was so pumped when I finished that beginning sequence in Adobe Rush on my phone. The little effects I could do, the little audio work I could do, I was just so impressed. And I came out, I'd say borderline just as good as the sequence edited on my computer. And the best part, it was 100% filmed and edited on the phone, something I carry in my pocket every day. So smartphones these days, they're not a limitation to not start creating content. If you have a modern smartphone in your pocket, you have a little mini supercomputer mixed with a camera that can produce great quality video and edit video. I was editing 4K 60 footage, 0 dropped frames. And this phone is a couple millimeters thick. There's no fan, there's no cooling system, and it's doing it no problem. And the best part, it's not even overheating. But that's pretty much it from me, guys. Thank you all for watching the video. Make sure to like and subscribe if you are new, and comment down below what you guys think of smartphones and filmmaking. But I will see you guys next time. Peace out.